What happens when a Hollywood legend finally decides she's done being interrupted and talks back to one of daytime television's most outspoken hosts? Well, you're about to see one of the most intense verbal moments in The View's entire history, when Jane Fonda absolutely shut down Joy Behar right on live television. The clash was so sharp that the whole studio froze, and by the time it was over, Joy Behar looked like she wanted to sink under the table and disappear. Make sure to subscribe and drop a comment because this story is honestly unbelievable. It all began like any normal Tuesday morning on The View. The cameras were running, the crowd was in their seats, and the hosts were getting ready to welcome their guest of the day, the one and only Jane Fonda. At 86, Fonda had seen everything Hollywood could throw at a person, from her early rise as a young actress to becoming a political activist and fitness icon. She had lived a lifetime in front of the world. She had agreed to come on the show to talk about her latest project. But nobody expected Joy Behar to twist the interview into something close to a personal attack. When Jane Fonda walked onto the stage, the audience broke into loud applause. She looked elegant in a clean white blazer, her silver hair perfectly styled, her posture strong and graceful. She sat down in the guest chair with the confidence of someone who had spent more than 6 decades in the spotlight. "Welcome back to The View, Jane," Whoopi Goldberg said warmly. "It's always wonderful to have you here." "Thank you," Jane replied with a friendly smile. "It's always nice to return." But before Jane could even settle in, Joy Behar jumped forward with her usual bluntness. "So Jane, I need to ask something that's been bothering me," Joy said. "You've been extremely vocal about climate change and activism, but isn't it a little hypocritical coming from someone who has spent years flying in private jets and living in huge homes?" Her question hung in the air like a dark cloud. The other hosts exchanged awkward looks, clearly uneasy with Joy's sudden aggressive start. Jane Fonda's face shifted only slightly, but she stayed calm. "That's an interesting way to begin," Jane said steadily, though there was firmness behind her words. "I've been open about my past and the changes I've made. I've greatly reduced my carbon footprint and I use my voice to raise awareness." But Joy didn't let it go. She leaned forward, speaking louder. "But come on, Jane. You can't just say you've changed and expect people to ignore your fancy lifestyle. You tell normal people to make sacrifices while you live comfortably. Don't you see the contradiction?" The audience started murmuring, sensing the heat building between them. Jane Fonda narrowed her eyes slightly, the kind of expression that reminded everyone why she had always been such a strong presence. "Joy, I'm not sure what you're trying to do here," Jane said calmly. "Are you interviewing me about my current work, or are you trying to create drama for your show? Because if it's the second thing, you're going about it the wrong way." Joy's face turned red. She clearly didn't expect Jane to push back so quickly. "I'm just asking questions people want answered. I'm being honest." "No, Joy," Jane cut her off, her voice firmer now. "You're being rude and confrontational. There's a difference between honest questions and what you're doing right now." The other hosts were silent, looking frozen as the two women faced each other. Sunny Hostin looked like she wanted to jump in, while Sarah Haynes fidgeted nervously with her cards. Whoopi's face was unreadable, but she looked ready to step in if things exploded. Feeling cornered, Joy doubled down. "I'm sorry if you can't handle tough questions, Jane. But this is The View. We don't do soft interviews." That comment sparked Jane's anger. She straightened her posture, her eyes blazing with the intensity she was known for in her strongest film roles. "Tough questions?" Jane said sharply. "Joy, you call that journalism?" "You hit me with a poorly researched accusation without giving me a fair chance to answer. That isn't strong journalism. That's cheap sensationalism." Joy tried to speak, but Jane continued. "And if you had done even basic research before this interview, you would know I've been living in a smaller home for years. I stopped using private jets a long time ago, and I've donated millions to environmental causes." "But you didn't check any of that before attacking me, did you?" The studio was silent. Joy Behar looked shocked that Jane was fighting back with so much force. She hesitated and tried to recover. "Well, I think our viewers want to understand these contradictions. Jane leaned back in her seat with a slight smile. What viewers deserve, Joy, is honest, respectful conversation, not whatever performance this is. The word performance hit Joy hard. Her face went from bright red to pale. She glanced around the table as if hoping someone would rescue her, but none of the other hosts met her eyes. I don't know what you're implying, Joy said defensively. I'm not implying anything, Jane replied coolly. I'm saying it directly. You're performing right now. You're trying to create conflict where none needs to exist. It's beneath both of us. Joy looked rattled. She had thought she could intimidate Jane Fonda, but instead she was the one losing ground. Look, Jane, Joy tried again. I'm just trying to hold you accountable. Jane let out a gentle laugh, though it wasn't warm. Hold me accountable? Joy, you're a talk show host, not a prosecutor. And even if you were, you'd need your facts straight before accusing someone. The tension in the room was so thick the audience barely breathed. Whoopi finally tried to save the situation. Maybe we should talk about your new project, Janie, but Joy interrupted her, making the worst possible choice. No, wait, Joy said, raising her hand. I think we need to deal with this. Jane, you've been controversial your whole career. From Vietnam to your political stances, you've always stirred things up. So why are you suddenly so sensitive when someone questions you? That statement crossed a line. Jane Fonda's expression hardened. She had tried to stay civil, but Joy had gone too far. Sensitive? Jane said softly, dangerously soft. Joy, you don't understand the difference between being controversial and being uninformed. What you just said proves you don't know what you're talking about. Joy, thinking she finally had leverage, pushed forward. I'm talking about your anti-war actions, your comments about American soldiers. You can't rewrite history, Jane. The studio dropped into absolute silence. Even the crew seemed frozen. Jane Fonda sat still for a moment before speaking, her voice cold and perfectly controlled. Joy, I'm going to give you one chance to take that back and apologize. What you just said is not only false but deliberately stirring things up, and it is disrespectful to me and to the veterans I have worked with for decades. But Joy, completely misreading the moment, shook her head. I don't need to apologize for stating facts. Your actions during Vietnam are well documented. Jane stood up slowly. It seemed she might walk off, but instead she turned directly toward Joy. Facts, Jane said with icy calm. Let me tell you some facts. I spent years visiting injured veterans in hospitals. I have worked with veteran groups for over 50 years. I have apologized many times for the pain my actions caused. And I have given years of my life to supporting troops. But you wouldn't know that, because you didn't bother to research before talking. Joy's face drained of color. She realized she was in deep trouble but didn't know how to stop. Well, maybe that's true, Joy stuttered, but the perception is still there. The perception? Jane repeated. Joy, you're not reporting on perception. You are creating it. You spread wrong information and then blame it on what you think people believe. Sarah finally spoke up. Maybe we should go to a break, but Jane lifted her hand. Joy started this. Let's finish it. Joy looked trapped. She had expected Jane to be easy to push around, but she had instead awakened a storm. Joy, Jane said, you have a platform that reaches millions. That comes with responsibility. You cannot throw around half-truths because you want drama. I wasn't throwing accusations, Joy whispered. Yes, you were, Jane replied. From the moment I sat down, you have made comments without basis. This isn't journalism. It's a personal attack. The hosts looked horrified. Joy tried one last time. I think you're overreacting, she mumbled. Jane gave a short laugh. Overreacting? Joy, in a normal interview, the host prepares. They ask thoughtful questions. They listen. You did none of that. Joy swallowed hard. I did prepare. No, you didn't, Jane said firmly. If you had, you'd know about my documentaries, my protests, my environmental work. But you ignored all of that to make drama. Joy had no answer. And another thing, Jane continued. Your approach isn't just unprofessional, it's lazy. You could have asked meaningful questions. You didn't. The audience was silent. Joy's confidence was gone. Jane leaned slightly forward. Joy, what exactly did you hope to do today? What was your goal? Did you think I'd fall apart under your questioning? Joy opened her mouth but had no words. Because from here, it looks like you invited me to use me as a prop for whatever story you already planned. That's not journalism. That's exploitation. The studio gasped. Joy's hands trembled. She tried to speak. I didn't mean it. Jane gently raised her hand. Joy, listen carefully. I've done interviews for 60 years. I faced people much tougher than you. You are simply a talk show host who thought she could get attention by being rude to an older guest. And that isn't bold. It's sad. The audience gasped again. Joy looked crushed. Whoopi tried to close the segment, but Jane asked to finish. Joy, Jane said, you mentioned my controversies. You're right, I have been. But there is a difference between taking a risky stand and being rude for ratings. I protested the war. I fought for women. I fought for the planet. I expected backlash. I was prepared. But what you've done today isn't courage. It's disrespect. Joy finally whispered, I'm sorry if you felt I don't feel you were rude. Jane interrupted. You were rude. That's not a feeling. It's a fact. And your apology means little if you don't understand why. The hosts stared at the table. Let me give you advice, Jane said, her voice calm again. Next time you have a guest, treat them with respect. Ask questions to inform, not to attack. Listen to answers instead of waiting to strike. Joy nodded silently, hoping it was over.